They say that all in love is fair, oh, but you don't care. You'll know what to do when it gets hold of you. With a little help from above, you'll feel the power of love.
I'm sorry? What was that again?
I'm a god.
You're God.
I'm a god. I'm not the god. I don't think.
Because you survived a car wreck?
You folks ready to order?
I didn't just survive a wreck. I wasn't just blown up yesterday. I have been stabbed, shot, poisoned, frozen, hung, electrocuted, and burned.
Oh, really?
And every morning I wake up without a scratch on me, not a dent in the fender. I am an immortal.
Special today is blueberry waffles.
Oh my God, it's so exciting to listen to I Fight Dragons as our official theme for Graphically novel Time Traveling, this wonderful 6-part series that we are getting into. But first, before we get into the details on that, allow me to introduce my wonderful host, starting with my partner, the guy that came to me and suggested we do this crazy ass experiment. And that is Mr. Will Asbill. Mr. Asbill, how you doing?
Doing good. Let's be honest, I send a lot of weird ideas to people.
That's fine. And every once in a while, somebody is stoned or drunk enough to be like, that is brilliant. And then we end up doing a month of planning, and here we are. And with you is your lovely wife, Miss Ann Asbill. Ann, how are you?
I'm doing fine.
You ready to talk some time travel?
You know, it's probably one of my favorite little offshoots of the sci-fi genre. So I'm always down to talk about that.
And auditing this episode, we're not sure if we can grab her for all 6 episodes, but definitely this one is also my wife, the lovely and talented, the Baronessa, Miss Jennifer Howland.
Hello, all. Happy to be here.
And how excited are you about talking some time travel?
I'm interested. It's not, I can't claim to be as enamored of it as Anne, but we're going to be talking about some movies that I really like. So it's going to be good.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to pull the Band-Aid off real quick and just say that this will be kind of our episode 0. Originally, this was going to be a 5-part series, but we had to add this part after Will and I started talking about it because time loops. Are time loops truly time travel movies? Will, give me your thoughts, then Ann, then Jen.
Honestly, in the concept of the time travel, with time loop, it's an individual normally locked in at a certain point of time and cannot pass go until they've resolved some kind of thing or things, either externally or internally. At least that's what I've observed with time loops so far in movies and shows.
So, would you consider them time travel?
Oof. If no confirmation of technology or, let's say, supernatural means have been indicated that they were at a certain point of time and then they jump to another time and then they're repeating in a certain sequence, then it's time travel. But when you just have that particular moment of an individual having the recurring situation at a localized source, that's just time loop. No time travel.
All right. Ann, your thoughts?
I would agree with that and then expound on it in that most time loops that we see represented are not a conscious choice of the one who is repeating this experience. So without that being the case, you can't really say that's travel because it's not anything that's being done on their part, and they don't have any indication of what has caused this event to occur. So unless that gets broken, it can't really truly count as time travel, even though there's an aspect of it within the idea of a time loop.
Jen?
Yeah, I don't think time loops are time travel. Partially, I agree with Anne that there's no conscious effort to effect a time loop. And with Will, that the time loop movies that we've seen, generally there's an action that needs to be taken or a change that needs to happen to end the loop. And when we've seen that happen, they end up not moving forward in time at all or back in time. You know, they're just at that moment where the time loop started.
Yeah, so I thought about this as well, and I am also an English nerd. So it brought me back to Kurt Vonnegut's book Slaughterhouse-Five, and my theory is that a time loop is actually the same thing as being unstuck in time for just a certain period and having to repeat it until you get it quote-unquote right, in one way or another, as we'll go into. But I think I agree with everybody else where even in the instances where, as we'll see, there is a machine or there is some scientific reason, huge quote unquote there, because the science, as we'll get into, is questionable at best.
Very large.
I like to call that hand wavy.
Yes, that's right. But running through the deflector dish. But I see it more as an unstuck in time. So you're a consciousness reliving a particular day over and over. And this is backed up by the fact that the body does not generally carry over wounds and things like that. So it's just your knowledge is the only thing that moves, not necessarily the rest of you. Almost like a reoccurring quantum leap without the ramifications to history, if that makes sense. But yeah, I also wanted to start a little bit here, and I think anybody else jump in by all means. This is kind of a free-for-all discussion. But the history of the time loop, I just looked up a little bit of it because there are some fascinating kind of points in history that some people say that William Dean Howell's Christmas Every Day in 1892 was the earliest time loop story. But other people basically says time passes normally in that story, and it's magic forcing everyone to celebrate Christmas no matter what the date is. So that's not really a time loop. That's more of the same thing every day or the same event every day. But the time loop concept in the first time that appears that I could find was in 1922's Worm Ouroboros, which is at the end of a great war, the protagonist opt to have time recycle endlessly rather than settle into post-war lives of peace and comfort. Which I may look that up. I'm not huge on like early 20th century literature. I'm like, I go from like late 19th straight to probably like mid 20th century. But that sounds pretty interesting to me. And then the next conventional time loop story that would come around was 1941's Doubled and Redoubled, which is a man experiences the best day of his life and wishes everyone could be like that, and a witch overhears him. So
you have to be careful saying things in the earshot of witches.
You know what? In this house, in my house, yeah, with I live with a city witch, and yeah, that's very, very true. And then the first example I could find of time loop in film is called The Time Travelers. It's in 1964. I have not watched it. It's actually one of those not really streaming anywhere. I would have had to dig it out. And we had some great movies to discuss otherwise. So we're just going to go ahead and go with that. So first time loop movie that comes to mind.
Groundhog Day.
I mean, it's kind of the OG, right?
Yep.
It's the one that everybody knows the concept of. It's the one that everybody compares to. In fact, most of the other films on this list even reference it as the explanation for what is happening to them. Ann and Will, you guys just recently rewatched Groundhog Day. I've watched it so many times I pretty much have it memorized. anything new after we kind of have watched all of these other time loop ideas that are different for you now watching it?
So when you're trying to be more consciously aware of what you're observing in a movie or a show, they usually come to some kind of explanation of why a time loop is occurring. And in Groundhog Day, there's never an explanation of why Phil Connors is reliving February the 2nd over and over again. Like, nobody explains it, which is fine with me because it's just a great movie anyway. But I was like, holy shit, like, what initiated this technically for him? Was it talking shit about the groundhog?
Curse of the Groundhog.
That was no groundhog. That was a witch.
That was a witch. Damn it. Witches again. It was a witch's familiar.
Right.
That's a brave witch having a groundhog as her familiar.
Right?
Better than a wolverine.
Well, I mean, is it though?
Or a badger.
Yeah, a badger I would give you because they're
Depends on if you're in Europe or not.
True.
Oh, it's true.
Badgers in Europe are quite nice.
They're adorable too.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Groundhog Day, nothing's explained. We follow our protagonist through what theories have stated is like 1,000 years, although the director came forth and said it was like 100. Yeah. Although I would say it's got to be like 1,000 years, right? 100 is not enough time. I don't know how you guys' brains work, but to memorize all of the things, like down to the steps of every person in that town, with breaks to go mad and kill yourself over and over and over again.
I would say that's the part that, because I really hadn't rewatched the movie since I was a lot younger. I knew it was a good movie, I just hadn't really rewatched it. And just the heartbreaking nature of his situation really resonates a lot more once you're grown. And it's just, I mean, I was crying.
Yeah, it's true. I agree. There's, I think the first time I saw it, I was much younger, and it was just kind of a goofy Bill Murray movie, where he was being Bill Murray. And, it really didn't hit home, how just gutting that would be to be in that situation.
Yeah, and there's also something about these early 90s, late 80s movies where it's like, we're supposed to severely dislike this dude because he's kind of sarcastic, a little bit of a dick, but he's not like punching babies or anything, right? Does he really deserve to get stuck in a time loop for 100 to 1,000 years? Like, is that really something that we needed him? Like, did he deserve it?
Lends credence to the witch theory.
It does. Yeah. Well, and yes, and one of the early drafts of the script, an executive at the studio basically said as much and wanted it to be, I'll say it politically correctly, a Romani curse to be placed on him. So there was an entire like thinner subplot. Yeah.
Probably better that it was never explained why it was happening.
Right. And actually that was one of the two different script changes that I read about. The other one was, and I want everybody's opinion on this, is that originally Andie MacDowell's character would reject him on February 3rd when he broke out of the time loop, thereby placing herself into her own time loop at the end of the movie, setting up a sequel.
Oh no. Why? That's so mean.
Because it was the 90s and everything had to have a sequel.
Yeah.
Well, also everything had to be like unexpectedly dark at the end. Like Empire Records has an entire suicide subplot if you don't remember that.
How can anyone not remember that? They have a whole damn funeral.
Yeah, like so much. Like why are you so dark at the end?
Speaking of movies I've seen so many times I can repeat the scenes. I tried to split my wrists with a lady bick.
It's like the decade of the DC universe. So yeah, any other notes or anything on Groundhog Day? Any thoughts?
Yeah, it is really hard to like see why he would need to go through a time loop, but like I think he's in this point of like he's jaded or just tired of the rut of what he's in, and it's also the fourth year of being this Punxsutawney Phil thing. Uh, Maybe it's just he needs to go through a change of perspective to actually what he's got in life and also grow as a person. I guess that was like maybe the overall message they wanted to throw into like a romantic comedy.
Yeah, yeah. Also, rom-com. Why? Like, by all means,
Rom-com.
by all means, this movie should not have worked. On paper, this movie should not have worked to the larger audience that it has found.
Well, and how much do you think that has to do with the actors in the movie and not the script or the plot at all?
I did not give her a script, but thank you for proving my point, because this was originally supposed to star Tom Hanks.
Oh God,
That would not have worked.
no.
And it was only when Bill Murray was brought. Well, the studio, the screenwriter wanted Kevin Kline. The studio wanted Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks passed. They got Bill Murray, and Bill Murray was the one that brought on Andy McDowell.
Okay.
The studio, the director, or Harold Ramey, also didn't want it to be a comedy. Just wanted it to be a straight drama with Tom Hanks in a time loop.
I'm glad they made the adjustment because flipping the script on this with other actors just would have been kind of weird. Also, there was a Ned Ryerson random YouTube video thing that was like, Ned Ryerson, the devil, 666 Groundhog.
I love it.
Not the whole time.
I had a ill-fated idea for Twitch that I did that we were discussing the other day, and it was called Beyond 2 Hours, and the idea was that people would suggest a game that was on either the Xbox like network or the PlayStation network that was like, you know, one of those free with subscription that I hadn't played before, and I would play it. And it lasted exactly one session because I played 2 hours of Bloodborne. And I found myself, there was, out of all of it, I could take whatever path or whatever, but there was always one enemy that I would fight. And like, I just got really good at fighting this one enemy so I could take care of him in like 5 seconds. So I kept dying over and over and over for 2 hours, but every time I went up to this one enemy, I'd go, Ned Ryerson? Kill the shit out of him. So it was probably not also the best idea of like a Twitch stream, because really I was not very good at the game, and it was just me saying the same joke over and over and over again. Although, as we found out last night, it will still send Jen into giggles that, like, she starts crying still when she remembers me playing this stupid game.
Yeah, well, so it was not very successful because Josh was not good at the game. He kept saying the same things, and probably all you could hear on the Twitch stream was my hysterical laughter.
Right. Constant laughter. Yeah, never got past the first boss.
So I have a question, though, going back to the casting for Groundhog Day. So do you think that the idea was they were shooting for something similar to, what was the Castaway? Was that the name of the movie?
Where he's stuck on the island?
Yeah. So like that
like
vibe.
that kind of drama,
yeah,
but with a time loop.
Right.
Like, but that's the problem is, while I would not originally see, if I'd never seen Groundhog Day, and somebody told me it's a time loop idea in a rom-com, I would kind of raise an eyebrow. Telling me also it's a rom-com, or it's a time loop movie with Tom Hanks, and then at one point he just kills himself over and over, but there's no comedy in it. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I think the comedy had so much humanity
yeah.
into the movie too, and makes it more watchable. And also really lends to the whole idea of time loops being a metaphor for being stuck at a particular place or point in life. Like when he has that scene at the bar where he's like, "Can you imagine?" And both of the guys just deadpan look at him and are like, "Yeah, that about sums it up," and drink.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
absolutely. Yeah, you need that levity to pull you back because, like, okay, let's talk about the scene with the toaster. Because it really jumps out to me. On its surface, imagine that scene done straight. If it's not Bill Murray, if it's not somebody that just naturally has a comedic, I mean, he can do straight and he can do drama. We've seen that. Lost in Translation is a brilliant movie, but in this, he's very much in his quirky comedy thing. Now imagine it with Tom Hanks going down, ignoring people, grabbing a toaster, and frying himself in a bathtub.
People in the theater would be screaming.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, that's not... You do not walk out of that movie the same way that you walk into that movie.
Much like that puddle Bill Murray steps into so many times.
Right, absolutely. But yes, also, and what you said, just the idea of the monotony. You have to make that funny. Because that monotony otherwise that message is really going to get through to the viewer, and they're just going to get depressed.
Well, and it's not a drama then. It's a horror movie.
Okay, well, we will get into horror movies in a little bit, but yes, absolutely. All right, any other notes on Groundhog Day before we move on to our next time loop movie?
I just like the fact that Phil Connors goes from first day, then it's a little confusion, then it's absolute panic and terror and fear. Then he shifts into nihilism really quick. He's like, "We could do whatever we want," and I'm like, "Oh no."
So this is a good point, and I do want to really nail this down. Do we know how quickly he goes to nihilism, or does it just kind of seem like we're getting highlights? Obviously, we're not getting every iteration.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we're just getting highlights that sort of show the progression, but it's not a linear time situation because it would take a little longer than that, in my estimation, longer than anyone would be willing to sit in a theater or on a couch for. Certainly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Also, he times out when and how to steal a bag of money from an armored car. I'm like, holy fucking shit, bro.
Fix your bra, honey. Well, yeah, and he knows when people are going to choke. He knows that a couple getting married are secretly having doubts about the marriage, but also that they really want to go to WrestleMania. Like, there are so many details that are in this. We didn't use the larger clip at the beginning of this after the I Fight Dragons theme, but that is the part where he immediately starts going around the diner and saying everything that all these people are that he's found out. Well, to build that kind of trust, you have to spend at least several days, getting to know them, getting the surface level, and then figuring out how you can approach them, figuring out how then you can use that knowledge and say, I know you know, have this, to get to their deepest, darkest desires, which he then very, cavalier, in a cavalier manner, just spouts off in the middle of this diner and everybody's cool about it.
Nancy Taylor?
And she makes excited noises when she's really excited. Yeah. She makes chipmunk noises when she's really excited. But yeah.
So, question here. Since at first he doesn't know who the fuck this woman is, and then he uses the time loops to gather an insane amount of information, and then use that information to essentially con her into thinking like it's an old high school crush.
Oh, that's like a one-off.
Yeah, that's a one-off. Is that ethically wrong?
I would put it.
But he goes from that to, before I think he finally hits his groove of where he's able to break out of the loop, he goes from that sort of ethical soot gray, if not black area, into trying to karmically buy his way out of this by getting good points.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the things that is in the central theme of time loop and all the things that we're going to discuss today, there is a point very quickly where you get ethically gray. These characters at least get ethically gray. Maybe the only example that we'll talk about that is not that is boss level, but he's ethically gray from the beginning.
Yep.
Well, I would actually argue that in Groundhog's Day, he was ethically gray from the jump, from the beginning of the movie. And I think that going through that and really kind of exploring his own boundaries of how unethical he might be, he starts becoming ethical.
Okay.
He learns that doesn't serve him anything.
It's like The Good Place with no cheaty.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Well, and I mean, on that note, knowing yourself, and all four of us are people that I would think are very in touch with who we are as people at this point in our lives. And I'll go first. I believe it would probably take about 6 months worth of loops before I start, and I will get to the morally gray area before I'll get to the suicide level. Anybody else? Like, how long would it take? How many days, how long worth of the same day over and over before you're like, I guess, the nihilism that Will was talking about. Well, I guess it doesn't matter. I guess I'll just entertain myself for a while.
I would say 3 months for me would probably be a generous estimate.
I appreciate you. You're another Sith, Anne. You and me. Because I'm saying, I get Jedi powers. Like, Sith is pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I would despair pretty quickly. Before that, but then it would be nihilism. I'd be like, what does it matter if I do this or if I don't do this? So I'll just do this today.
So on what timeline do you think? How long would it take you to get to despair, and how long would the despair last? Keep in mind, you kill yourself, you just immediately wake up.
I'm not sure that I would try that.
Okay.
I don't know. It's hard to say, but I don't know that it would probably not be a very long time before I became a terrible person.
Will, have you been sitting there thinking about this one?
Oh, how long it would take before I got into nihilism?
Yes.
Honestly, I think Palm Springs, I can't remember if it was Palm Springs or something else brought it up, but it's like, yeah, you could live the same day over and over again, but if you do shitty things to other people, you're gonna remember the shitty things you did. So why haunt yourself with that shit? Nobody else is gonna remember, but you'll remember. So
you can really tell you were raised by hippies.
Oh, Will, you're just the best of us. That's really what we've learned.
Sorry.
Well, thanks, everybody. Will is better than everyone. We've discovered this. So, I'm going to move from Groundhog Day and move us along to Edge of Tomorrow. Jen, I don't think you watched them, did you?
So
Tom Cruise, War?
No.
Okay. Will and Ann, did you watch this one?
I did.
I was in the room. I'm sort of a projector to Tom Cruise.
Well, and Will and I discussed this a little bit, and we have very different views on it. I had never seen it before. I hated this movie. There is no easy way to say it. Like, there are some movies that I'm like, I can some things. I would not have thought it possible for the idea of a time loop movie, a war movie, both of those things in a sci-fi movie, all three of those things in one, to be put together. What's that?
I said with no emotional stakes.
Right. To be boring. I was honestly just bored through most of this movie. Like, because it has the war element, you expect some action. Because it has the time loop elements, you expect like a lesson learned. And because it's sci-fi, you expect some maybe science or interesting concepts. but it's literally splashed with alien blood equals time loop.
Just get a blood transfusion, and then you get to skip realities and play in your mech suit again, and hopefully get it right this time.
Right. And the solution to getting out of the loop is if you get injured and other people find you and give you a blood transfusion, you're out of the loop, time loop now.
Yeah. And what was it? When it first initially came out, it was like, God, it's great to see mech suits fighting tribal tattoos.
Yeah, the aliens are just they're kind of ridiculous. They look like the robots from the Matrix.
Wow.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I would love, Will, if you have anything good to say about this, but I don't. I honestly I'm only bringing this up because it is another version of this time loop thing, but it also I never watched it before we were doing the show, and I never would have thought, and in fact I said this to Jen, I had not seen a bad time loop movie before I saw this.
Honestly, it's like pizza, man. You got different variations and types. This is like the pizza you just throw in the oven, and it's okay. You have it on the background.
A tombstone or a Red Baron.
A Jack.
Yeah, it'll get you by.
The Totino's party pizza.
There you go.
You know what though? There is now. I'm not gonna argue about the movie, but I'll argue about Totino's. Totino's has this like little sweetness that I don't know. It has a taste all of its own, is what I'll say for Totino's, and I do like it. But like, I could not tell you the difference between a Jack's, a Red Baron, or a Tombstone. But I can tell you the taste of a Totino's. I don't know. So yeah, I don't know what more there is to say about it tomorrow.
Why didn't we just get the Emily Blunt story instead of just the Tom Cruise thing?
Right? That seems like it would have been way more interesting. I mean, okay, this was sequentially, looking at the years that these time loop movies happened that we're talking about, this would be the first one that explores someone that got out of the time loop guiding somebody that came into it.
Yeah.
Which, okay, interesting concept, somehow still failed.
Yeah. Maybe because there was like, it didn't feel like it was issuing out any kind of emotional weight to it.
Right. It had stakes. It had the entire world stakes, but like emotionally, there was no change of the characters or of anything really.
Also, I don't remember Tom Cruise. Sorry, I don't remember Tom Cruise or his character, whatever his name is, going through like that depressive, nothing fucking matters, I can't get it right scenario. He wants to throw the goddamn remote control of his life against the wall.
Yeah, no, everything was because it starts with him basically getting sent off, like he was the PR guy for the war, and he gets sent to basically fight in the war because a general that didn't like him, or colonel that didn't like him, changed his records to say that he was a deserter and that he had been enlisted in the actual fighting area of the military. Like, why all of that?
Yeah.
Come on,
and honestly, if it was that con,
yeah,
he's a rebel, Dottie.
A loner.
And honestly, go ahead.
Oh no, go right ahead.
And honestly, if you're going with that concept, why don't you just do a completely different actor than Tom Cruise? Like somebody, you can play around with, somebody like, I don't know, in his 20s or his 30s.
Or
Big action stuff.
Right, but they didn't even have that much action in the movie.
Yeah.
Well, like you said, he's getting old. I hate Tom Cruise, so I have nothing to contribute to this. It just looks like video game Respawn the movie to me.
I mean, it kind of was.
Yeah.
It kind of was, but I just, yeah. All right, well, let's move on to something that is near and dear to me, and that is the horror genre.
Yep.
I've got two here, and I'm going to start with one that's a severely unconventional time loop idea, and that is The Final Girls. For those listening who have not seen it, The Final Girls, it starts with a mother and a daughter, and the mother was in a 1980s slasher flick, and like it's what she's known as an actress, and she's still auditioning, and people still recognize her for this, and they get in a car accident, and the mother dies. And a year later, the daughter is invited to a screening of the mom's famous movie, and goes to it basically because she's getting paid. There is a fire in the theater. They go through the screen, uh, Last Action Hero style, and end up in the movie. So while it is a time loop, it is also them stuck in a 1980s slasher movie that resets every 92 minutes, because that's how long it takes for the movie to go through.
Son of time.
Right. They only really explore the whole time loop idea once, because they don't get in the van that the camp counselors are using to go to the camp. And then, oh no, I'm sorry, twice, because then they time it after the second time it happens and figure out it's the exact runtime of the movie. Then they go through it. They really don't explore the whole time loop thing, but I'm explaining it because it at least used a little bit of that idea, and because it is one of my favorite horror movies of all time. I love this movie. I just think it's fun, and there is a scene that has an Adderall striptease, and everyone should see it.
Jesus.
But the real horror movie that I want to discuss is Happy Death Day, which of our four, how many have seen it?
I have.
I've seen it, and okay. I fucking love it as a concept.
Yeah. So it's somebody's birthday. They wake up. They're reliving their birthday every day, but it also happens to be the day that they die over and over and over again, which is awesome. The science for this one, there's none in the original. You have to wait until the sequel to find out why. And I want to go around and talk about that. I think it worked for that reason. It's on a college campus. There's a bunch of things, but much like Groundhog Day, you don't know in the first one why she's in a loop.
Honestly, since I haven't watched Happy Death Day to you, and they haven't I don't know the explained concept yet for why the loop's occurring in the first one. I thought it was because like it was also her mom's birthday, the exact same day, and maybe it was like, I don't know, some paranormal energy trying to keep her alive or something like that.
Yeah, I too have not seen the sequel, but I did see the first one and absolutely loved it.
So I will not spoil anything then, because you should see the sequel. It is as if watching Happy Death Day and then Happy Death Day to You, there is no loss in quality. So it's one of the few sequels that it basically is like watching a 4-hour version of the movie that you liked the first time.
Nice.
Well, I'm fucking sold. All right. I'll check that out.
It is awesome, but a lot of what goes on is the explanation for why the first loop happened. And in this one, it's one of the first times that multiple people are caught in the time loop at the same time.
Oh, cool.
Yikes.
Yeah. So you have the person that's like, I've been here before, and then you have, I think it's 3 other people that are like, God damn it, what is happening right now? Which is a really interesting concept, and especially in a horror movie. I'm also going to take my shot right now and say PG-13 horror is not as bad as people say it is. There is absolutely room for PG-13 horror. This is a great example. If you've not seen Happy Death Day and you're not a person that gets really into, you're always worried about the label of horror, saying that it's just going to be a bunch of gore and torture porn and whatever, you don't know what you're getting into. Happy Death Day is a brilliant movie.
Like, if you need an R rating, then you're not that good of a horror writer.
I mean, there are some legit great horror movies that have the R rating, but yes.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not going to say that there aren't great R-rated horror movies. I'm just going to say the idea that you need to have that to have great horror is ridiculous, because you don't need to show to scare people. Some of the
I
most
agree.
effective scares are what you don't see.
You don't need to show the piece of glass going in the eye, please. We could
Right.
stop
Well, that's
Listen,
the
don't
theory
be
on the old Universal movies. The old Universal monster movies was Dracula lifted his cape up with both of his arms and moved in close, and then it cut to black. And the audience was filling in what happened with their own minds, which generally was a lot worse than whatever they could have put on film in those days. Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. There are other examples, like Jen and I just went and saw Megan. Megan, I know why it was a PG-13 movie. I really wish there was an R cut. For certain plot elements that they really could have stretched out with an R rating. But anyway, happy Death Day. Great use of the concept to make it a horror movie. It's the person dying over and over and over again. I had never seen that kind of concept before, and I just think it's the next progression of this idea.
Also, what I really enjoyed with Happy Death Day was, hey, she can't hang out in this time loop for very long because it's starting to really physically fuck her up internally, even though her outsides are fine. Like, I think there was that sequence where the doctor had done some x-rays and was like, you
should be dead.
Have this much trauma.
Yeah, that is in my notes, and I totally skipped over it with my eyes. This is the only time loop movie that I've seen that does that.
Right.
It's the only one where the body is affected. And so I would argue maybe this is the only true time travel time loop movie.
I could see that.
Yeah, I could see that.
Because while the body is healing when it wakes up the next day, it's healing like Wolverine style, where there are still breaks, there are still like trauma that you can see that the body has undergone.
Mm-hmm. Oh God, her body's gonna hurt like a motherfucker when she's in her 50s.
And this is another example of a great time loop movie that also features comedy that helps you get through both the horror and just the general horror of being stuck in a time loop in this movie. But the comedy really makes it work too. Also,
like the social dynamics, the scriptwriters did a good job in the social dynamics between like her being a sorority girl.
Yeah.
And then she's at this certain mindset in her life, and then she starts fucking waking up and
without making any of the characters seem more like characters than actual fully fleshed out people.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think the only exception to that rule is the sorority sister that's like the horrible, like, we're not eating carbs. Yeah.
There has to be a reason that general prejudice is out there, right?
Right. Absolutely. No, I agree with you. So moving on from Happy Death Day is one that was new to me, new to Jen, and I think was new to both of you. That's Boss Level.
Yep.
Which is the action movie version of a time loop movie. And boy, howdy was it.
Yeah.
It was actiony.
It was, and it was so weird. And at first I was just like, I don't think I like this at all. But I actually, it's still, I wouldn't say it's good. I wouldn't say it's good, but it was fun, like an action movie should be.
Yeah, I didn't hate it.
Yeah.
There were some parts that honestly really, really just killed me comedically, although I didn't understand the changing of the names in Egyptian mythology. That was like weird for me. But the girl calling herself Guan Yin, literally like the Buddhist goddess of mercy, a bodhisattva, as an assassin, that was fucking funny.
Yeah.
I have done this thing. But yeah, it's again, for people who have not seen it, it is an action movie where the person wakes up in the morning every day with bunches of people trying to kill him. Like the weird anime goon squad of assassins, literally like trying to kill him. And then you have to explore with him why these things are happening. The science actually is science. There is a MacGuffin machine in which several parts of his DNA had to be loaded into to loop him. But also, this is a machine that toward the end of the day will destroy the universe. This is also the only time that I've seen the space-time continuum destroyed where you can still go back and stop it. So it's like the universe is destroyed, but not time. Did you guys get anything from that? Because that was weird to me.
I started to think about it, and then I thought about the whole how this happened to begin with, and how the science was very hand wavy at best. And I figured they hadn't really thought about it.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's completely fair.
It's an action movie.
Yeah, right.
Like there was an effort, but it was a half-ass at best effort to kind of be like, oh, yeah, we probably
They
should
didn't do
explain.
like Michio Kaku or anything to be like, what are the physics of time travel? No.
Right. But a fun movie. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was, fun, and the idea of time loop in an action movie to try and give you muscle memory was great. I thought that idea is fun because it's like playing a video game level over and over and over again, where you just instinctually know, okay, now I got to move to the left, now I got to move over here, now I got to do this.
360 no scope.
Yes.
Yeah.
Plus, honestly, how do you have clearly what is a superior martial arts master ready at your disposal and not use that?
Right.
Come on.
Right. Well, because he had been a soldier and understood muscle memory, I guess, because that's something they teach in the military. Okay.
I was kind of disappointed though that like he decided to learn sword skills. It's like, no, why didn't you just ask me? He'd be like, hey, Dai Fang or Michelle Yeoh, can you help me fight this lady? She keeps killing me.
Yeah, I think part of that was also to give Michelle Yeoh like, hey, Michelle Yeoh's interested in coming to this movie. Well, let's just write her more into this. Give her more scenes because Michelle Yeoh. Also, there's the whole agency of the character thing, which is done for men, but they really won't do it for women for reasons. The patriarchy.
Also, she's outside the conflict, so it doesn't necessarily make much sense.
That's true. He would have to convince her every day to go and fight assassins.
Or better yet, she has like some kind of blood fucking feud with, Guan Yi or whatever. That'd been fun. But,
oh yeah. That would have been fun. Yeah.
Yeah. I am Guan Yi.
Guan Yin.
Guan Yin.
Guan Yin. I have done this thing.
I have done this shit.
So any other thoughts on Boss Level?
I thought Frank Grillo had fun with the role. It was good to see Naomi Watts get more work. I can't take Will Sasso seriously as any kind of like tough guy bodyguard anymore because I've watched too many Mad TV episodes where he's like, I am Alaso Waipo. So, and also as soon as Mel Gibson shows up, I'm just like, did we have to have Mel Gibson in this?
Although if we had to have Mel Gibson in this, at least he's a villain.
Yeah, but I'm just like, just seeing Mel Gibson takes me out of the movie.
Yeah, this is the second Mel Gibson movie I've seen this year. The other one is Fat Man, where he plays Santa Claus in another action movie. I mean, I'm kind of...
Don't celebrate. Sorry.
I'm kind of happy that he's relegated to these like direct to streaming roles.
Yeah. He's still
if they're entertaining, yeah, he's still working, but at the same time he's gonna be still working because that's how the patriarchy works.
Mm-hmm.
But if he has to be still working, at least he's not making a new Lethal Weapon or anything. He's stuck in these direct-to-video things that I'm only seeing because I'm like, oh my god! Like in the same vein that we just watched a movie with what did we just watch? The
Banshees of Inisherin.
No, I'm talking about the bad action movies that we've watched the last couple weeks.
Oh God, we've watched so many of those.
Dave Bautista and Sylvester Stallone.
Oh God.
I love Dave Bautista. He's got such a good heart.
Oh, I agree. But he was on his way up. These other action movies or action stars are on their way down. Yeah, there's a series of action movies called The Escape Room. Or no, Escape Plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, which the first one has Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone. And then the second and third ones have Sylvester Stallone and Dave Bautista. And they are horrible but awesome. And basically, there's a whole subset of these action movies that are direct to streaming right now. And you know what? Mel Gibson can be right stuck in there. I mean, he was a racist fuck, but he didn't kill a dude. Like, he didn't sexually assault anybody, but he was a racist fuck. You can be in direct-to-streaming action movies for the rest of your career. Have fun.
Get lost in the queue.
Right, absolutely. So, the last movie that I have to discuss is arguably what I think is probably one of the most complex, and that is Palm Springs, which is on Hulu. The only movie to start mid-loop with a new person coming into the loop, and there are two people that are already in the loop, and the third person is our point of entry character.
Yep, accurate.
The science is a primordial cave. In my looking into this movie, I found out that a consultant for the script was real-life physicist Clifford Johnson, who is used throughout the script writing process and is also, he cameos as the physicist in the movie that the character reaches out to.
Amazing.
So this is an actual physicist that works on the theoretical ideas of how time works, working on a Hollywood movie.
And you could honestly tell, but also without it being so bogged down by that it wasn't accessible.
Agreed. 100% agreed. There is a lot of like physics talk in this, but it is done for the benefit of the character development for one of the characters. I guess I should say, since I've done it for the others, for those who have not seen this movie, it is a wedding that is taking place in Palm Springs due to a seismic event because they're in California. It opens up a primordial cave, and anyone that finds themselves going into the cave will start in a time loop. So it starts to be like some people have been in there for a while, some people have been there a little less, and then there's this new character.
The thing that I found interesting about it, though, is that they're not in individual time loops. They're all in the same loop, which I think is much more interesting because there's that shared, like, there's still a little bit of that nihilism, but there's somebody there, and you kind of see that desperation coming through in how those relationships play out.
Yeah, I totally agree. One of my favorite parts is like they're gonna crash headlong into a semi, and the person that's been in the time loop longer is like, okay, unbuckle their seatbelt, and they're like, no, trust me, you want a quick death. You do not want to just be sitting in pain in an ICU, because death is temporary in this. Pain is very, very real. Which is something that wasn't explored as in depth in like Groundhog Day.
Agreed.
Yeah, they definitely glossed over that in Groundhog Day.
Well, he just mentions in his I am a God speech that he's like, I've been burned, I've been shot, I've been stabbed, and all these crazy things. But he does mention, like, you know, smelling his own skin as he's on fire.
Right.
Tasting meat in his mouth when he got shot in the head. Ugh.
So what did you guys think of Palm Springs?
Loved it.
I am disappointed that it took me this long to watch this movie. It is now my favorite time loop movie.
Agreed. 100% agreed. It's so good. It's got the comedy right. It's got consequences of bringing other people into the loop right. It has so many aspects, It is what I consider the next progression of the time loop movie. And sadly, I don't want to say that much about it because I want everyone to watch this movie.
Yeah, it is quite good. And I do feel like it was kind of a sleeper. I think a lot of people missed it.
I will
which
say,
is
I think
too
it's
bad.
interesting the way that the length of time that the characters have been stuck in the loop for kind of influences their ways of thinking, because you have the newest character with maybe potentially the most hope eventually finding the impetus to get themselves out of the loop. And I wonder, whether the two that had been there longer had just given up, if that was always an option, or if there was just something special about that character. But it ended up being just beautiful.
I
Or
think
they
it was
just
a
didn't
little
know they had to science the fuck out of it.
right. I think it was a little of column A and a little of column B. Like I think it shows the different reactions to getting stuck in a time loop. It shows different people will have different reactions to things that happen to them, which is a super interesting way, to approach it. Even earlier when we were talking about how long it would take each of us, will never get to that nihilistic, nothing matters, I'm not going to hurt other people, that he can see. Ann and I are both like, you'll get there eventually.
I'll get to the nothing matters like breakdown eventually, but I'm not going to be like, I don't know, stabbing and punching people all the time. I don't think I'll get that crazy.
Ann and I will get there.
Stabbing and punching is really ineffective, though, if you can get your hands on a high caliber weapon.
It's true. And if you count people's steps, you can get into an armory.
God.
There's one right here in town, Will.
But yeah, I would say my personal recommendation and my idea at the end of this was to ask everybody's number one, because mine and just said it too, is Palm Springs. I would say if you want to see this idea, this time loop genre done to the best that I have seen, I would recommend Palm Springs.
Russian Doll.
Well, we're gonna talk about TV shows here in a second, but
okay. Movies, yeah, Palm Springs, number one.
Yeah.
Yeah, Palm Springs is definitely my number one, and I would say Groundhog Day is probably my number two. My number three, which we did not watch or discuss, is actually a Korean film called A Day. That's also just a beautiful example of the genre, and the production quality on it's incredible. And it's about a father trying to save his daughter from dying in a car crash. So if anyone's interested in that, I did find out it is available free for streaming on Plex with ads, but it's a very interesting contribution to the genre and something that is not from the Western world.
That is awesome, and yeah, I am fully ensconced in the Western media world, so I appreciate you bringing that. I may travel out of my comfort zone and check that out. That sounds awesome.
The actors are incredible, so I recommend it.
So there are also a lot of other media examples. I've got two, and then a larger one. Russian Doll, which is on Netflix, which is Natasha Lyonne, who is quickly becoming one of my favorite actresses of all time. There's the Supernatural episode, the Mystery Spot episode, where Dean dies countless times in funnier and funnier ways.
Fucking food poisoning.
Oh my god, the food poisoning was brilliant.
The dog, that sweet little golden retriever.
Yeah.
The piano falling on him. And then every incarnation of Star Trek has at least one time loop episode. I guess except for Lower Decks. I don't think Lower Decks has had one yet, has it? But if people have not seen Russian Doll, highly, highly recommended. The first season is time loop. Second season is more time travel. We will, I'm sure, discuss it later in the show. Man, what a ride. And again, Natasha Lyonne. So, any other thoughts on time loops?
Since you're mentioning series episodes, I was going to mention Stargate SG-1, Window of Opportunity. It's in season 4, episode 6. O'Neill and Teal'c get stuck in a time loop scenario, and they have to keep convincing everybody that it's actually happening. And also Teal'c smashes a guy into a door.
And they don't just hand wave the convincing people over and over and over again. They actually go through how they have to. Okay.
Yeah.
They keep getting pulled in to like have their heads examined and stuff. They're like, you don't have to do the examination every time.
Like O'Neill legit says the doctor is like, what exactly would be causing this in my eye?
Interesting. I never got into Stargate. I don't know. I don't know if it was just that time in my life, but I never got into Stargate.
Let's be real. There's a lot of content out there. You can't catch everything in the net of your attention span. It's limited.
It's true.
And my favorite part of that episode, though, is they start fucking around. O'Neill starts learning how to do clay pots. And they're also learning how to learn Latin from Jackson. And Teal'c and O'Neill decide to turn on the Stargate, and they start playing golf with it. Like, they start trying to just play some golf, and then the commanding officer starts yelling at him, and he says, "In the middle of my backswing? Really?"
Wow.
Yeah. But other than that, that's the only series I can really think of that have time loop scenarios besides Star Trek, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
With the Supernatural episode, that's probably the most direct send up to Groundhog Day that we've seen.
Yeah.
Just with the alarm clock and, a different song, but still an annoying song.
Oh, yeah.
Particularly the more you hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That whole episode was a brilliant homage to Groundhog Day beginning to end. And Sam getting just more and more
Only more heartbreaking at the end, because the lesson that he's supposed to learn from it is Dean's gonna die. No matter what you do, Dean is going to die.
Yeah. Well, Supernatural in general, like all of these goofy ass episodes that always end with some lesson that you're like, oh. Except for Racist Truck. Fuck Racist Truck. Racist Truck was a dumb episode.
That was worse than the Bug episode, and that's saying a lot.
It is saying a lot. Racist Truck and Bugs. I can tell true Supernatural fans, because those are the ones that they always pull out. So bad. Man, this brings us to the end of our first episode, and I guess it's time to reveal our top 5 time travel movies that we will be doing throughout this series, huh?
Yeah.
Starting with our next episode, we're going to do the probably most known time travel movie of all time, and that is Marty McFly. We're going to go back to the future. Our theme, done by I Fight Dragons, is a remake of the Power of Love, done by Huey Lewis and the News, that features prominently. Originally, I had the Huey Lewis saying, "You guys are just too darn loud," but unfortunately, it is hard to get a really good audio version of him saying that, because he's saying it through a loudspeaker.
Oh, yeah.
So instead, we went with the classic, quote from the movie. So we're going to do Back to the Future. For the first time for me, I don't know about for Jen or Anne, but Will has brought to the table The Time Machine from 1960, the H.G. Wells done movie. I've never seen it. I'm looking forward to it. And then we're going to do the arguably time loop and time travel movie, 12 Monkeys, following that up with Butterfly Effect, and then ended on a high note with Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. And the things that we're going to be analyzing every movie is how entertaining it was, how the science works, and its overall effect, in our estimation, to the space-time continuum.
Mm.
So yeah, any excitement? Anything anybody's really looking forward to?
Well, before we talk about that, I just want to. Anne actually mentioned a movie. I asked her to like write up a list of time loop movies she enjoys.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the one you mentioned. Then I was like, oh my god, I forgot about it.
I already mentioned it.
Oh, you already mentioned Run Lola Run?
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah.
That's a great movie.
It is a great movie. That was, maybe I'm remembering it wrong. Was Run Lola Run a time loop, or was it an alternate reality movie?
See, they never explain it.
Yeah.
So I feel like it could count as a time loop, although it doesn't have the same, yet again, like when we talked about the Final Girls, it doesn't have them repeating the loop enough times to have it be like a whole thing, because it only, I think, runs through it maybe 3 times.
I think it's 3, yeah. Yeah, it's weird. Like, there were a bunch of those. Run Lola Run, Sliding Doors, some of those that I'm like...
Sliding Doors at least advertised it itself as an alternate reality.
Right. But that's the other thing is, could alternate reality movies done in that sense just be time loop? Well, okay. Does Lola know, iteration to iteration, what has happened in the previous one?
Gotcha.
It's been a long time since I've seen it, so I can't.
Yeah, same.
I know, same. And that's gonna stick with me, and I'm probably gonna now watch it this week. Hey, everybody! Yeah. If you have a question, or if you watch Lola Run, and you want to, educate us, graphicallynovel@gmail.com.
Get in the comments.
Yeah, that's right. Get in the comments. Man, that's a good one though. Run Lola Run is a great movie. And I guess in order for it to be a time loop and not an alternate reality, you would need to keep at least something from the previous loop, right?
Right.
Whether it be knowledge, an object, something.
I'd say the thing that prevents us from exploring that probably fully is also just the fact that even if she were to remember things, there's not enough time to like fully ingrain it, because she's already on a very tight time schedule to begin with. So she wouldn't even have time to reevaluate her actions that much, just given the nature of the time constraint she's under.
It's true. It's very true. Oh, that's a good question. Well, that's a great cliffhanger on this episode. Is Run Lola Run an alternate reality movie, or is it a time loop movie? And on that note, did everybody have a great time?
Oh yeah,
that was
awesome.
Fun.
Yeah. Please join us next time when we will be discussing Back to the Future. But until then, again, a big thank you to Brian and I Fight Dragons for giving us the permission to use their cover of Power of Love for our theme, and you're going to hear it in its entirety right now. Have a good one.
Make a one man weep, make another man sing. Changing a heart to a little white dove. More than a feeling, that's the power of love. Tougher than diamonds, rich like cream. Stronger and harder than a bad girl's dream. Make a bad one good, make a wrong one right. Power of love will keep you home at night. Don't take money, don't take fame. Don't need no credit card to ride this train. It's strong and it's sad and it's cruel sometimes. That's the power makes the world go round. Don't take money, don't take fame, don't need no credit card to ride this train. It's strong and it's sad and it's cruel sometimes, but it might just save your life. They say that all in love is fair, oh, but you don't care. You'll know what to do when it gets hold of you.